Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. Wish you had a lawyer in the family? Now you do. Here's your host, Veronica Waters.
Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. I'm your host, Veronica Waters. So very excited to be here with you for a very special episode of Lawyers in the House. Today we're talking about women in law. Arabella Babb Mansfield holds the distinguished honor of becoming the very first woman to be licensed as an attorney in the United States. It was in Iowa in 1869. Also in 1869, Myra Blackwell passed the bar in Illinois, but both the state and the U.S. Supreme Courts said no to her becoming a practicing attorney. In fact, when her case went before the nation's highest court in 1873, one of the justices wrote, quote, "The paramount destiny and mission of woman are to fulfill the noble and benign offices of wife and mother." I hear gasps in the room. Fast forward from the 19th to the 21st century, and where is the legal lay of the land today as we sit here in 2022? Well, as of 2021, women make up 55% of law school students, and in 2022, 38% of all attorneys are women. Some of these high-powered success stories are in the house with me today. Ladies, thanks so much for being in the house. We are talking to some dynamic, phenomenal, skilled attorneys from Motley Injury Attorneys here for this very special episode of Lawyers in the House. And I'm just going to start here, straight to my left, and go down the row. First, give you their names so you can see their smiling faces. And then we'll delve into their stories individually, what the challenges have been like, what the rewards are like, and what advice they would give to those who were coming behind them. First, we're going to start off with Jennifer Fleming, who's been practicing law for 15 years.
Yes.
Alyssa White is next, an 11-year veteran of the law. Coming up next, we have Michelle Mumpower, who's been an attorney for 7 years.
Hello.
Nevis Yurich had a career in law before she became an attorney 7 years ago. And we also have Kate Powell, who has been an attorney for, I want to say 6 years now. 7 years. 2015. Okay, so 7 years now. Kate Powell has been an attorney, and Margaret Grinleski, 11 years in the legal field. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here.
Thank you.
This is a lot of collective legal wisdom here. And I do want to say that as someone who feels like a pretty modern girl myself, it doesn't surprise me to see women in the legal field. But I do want to point out that I've learned there are some really individual challenges and similar parallels and stories that come with being a woman in the law. So let's talk about that. I first want to let people get to know a little bit about you and your personal journeys. So who wants to go first telling me about what your journey to law was all about?
I'll go, I guess. I decided from a very young age that I wanted to be an attorney. I think it was second grade. I just decided that was what I was going to do. I must have seen something or someone that I really liked, and it stuck with me, and so I just kept that drive through school. I just knew that I was going to go to law school, and then the question was, what type of law do I want to go into? My parents are very involved in service. My dad worked in nonprofits his whole life, and my mother was an educator. So giving back was always very important and instilled in me at a young age. And with the type of law that we do, personal injury, you're able to help people at their worst, and you get to do that professionally, which feels really good.
Margaret, tell me a little bit about your journey.
So when I was in graduate school for my counseling degree, I knew then that I was going to become a counselor, but I also knew that I wasn't necessarily going to stick with that forever. So when I was 35, I went back to law school, and then I, finished law school and passed the bar, and then I continued to work in counseling for a little while. And then after that, I started working at Motley & Associates.
You were a licensed professional counselor.
Yes.
What inspired you to leave that field and go into this one?
I just wanted to do more than what I was doing. I'm by nature, I think I'm somewhat of a helper, or I like to help resolve problems. And I wasn't necessarily resolving things at the pace I would enjoy, so I wanted to do more.
And let's talk to Nevis about her journey. You were a paralegal for a long time before you ever went to law school and then became a full-fledged attorney. When did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
So earlier shows, I think I mentioned that both of my parents practiced law in another country. And when we came to America, they weren't able to, their schooling wasn't validated. They weren't able to, start from scratch and go to law school and pass the bar. So the idea of law in the house and how we were raised was very important. And so shortly before graduating college, I started a position as a paralegal. I loved it so much, I stayed in that role for close to 8 years. And one morning I just woke up and I said, I think I can do this as an attorney. Like Margaret said, there was more that I could do. I wanted to do more, but it was limited because I didn't have the schooling. And then one day I decided to go to law school. I had support from my family, and now I love what I do. It's the best decision I've ever made. So,
Is becoming a lawyer the best decision you ever made, Alyssa?
Yeah, and I kind of just stumbled upon it, really. It wasn't my life plan. I didn't grow up in a household of lawyers or lawyers around me, really. So one of my mentors in college suggested it might be a good path for me as I was approaching my senior year. And I took a lawyers in business, or like a legal business course in college. And I was like, okay, maybe this is, kind of my path. And as I got into it, it really just kind of revealed itself, and the doors kept opening in the ways that were leading me down to become a lawyer. And I have to say that, we all probably up here feel very, we've accomplished something for ourselves, and it's something that nobody can ever take away from us. And I think that's really empowering as women in the world and with families, is that, we've accomplished something, and, I think, I'm proud of everybody around us. It's the camaraderie that we share, and the accomplishments and the day-to-day, even back and forth, that we share on the stage is really valuable.
Michelle, talk about how you got to this moment.
So I actually didn't ever think I was going to become a lawyer. It wasn't on my radar until I was a few years into my biochemistry and genetics degree. And the pharmaceutical company I was actually doing research for, I always knew I wanted to do something, like Jen said, to help others. And I think all of us kind of have that same vision, that same drive. And the pharmaceutical company I was working for one day was bought out. We didn't get any more funding from the FDA. And I said, this isn't really what I want to do. So I went and worked for a law firm, loved it, and went to law school. And here I am today.
And then another person who had legal family matters, I guess, so to speak, Kate Powell.
Yeah, so my father is an attorney. I'm very close with my dad. He never encouraged me to go to law school. And a lot of us will say that, like most lawyers or judges, they'll tell you don't do it.
Did he discourage you?
No, but it wasn't a whole follow in my footsteps kind of thing. But I did grow up at his firm, filing. Him and I will talk for hours about cases and how interesting his work is. He's taught me a lot of things, also about work-life balance, which is sometimes rare for attorneys. So I feel like I followed in his footsteps in that way, and how much he enjoys the interesting parts of the career, helping others, for sure. He has always instilled that in me. And so then I ended up in law school kind of later, in my late 20s, because I had done some nonprofit work before that. And I was wanting to expand on that work, expand on being able to help people. And the law degree can just take you even further than what a lot of us were already doing before law school. And I will shadow again what some of the others have said on the stage, but love my career now. And as a female, it has really taught me what I'm capable of. On a weekly basis, I'm challenged.
Still learning.
Taught.
Still
yes.
learning as you go, sort
Yes.
of like what you're capable of, and that you really can, as you and I talked about earlier, you really can have it all. Let's talk about how you get to the point where you have it all. Because, again, women in law, to me, common, but some people might wonder, why are we even doing a show like that? But from what I hear, at times the legal field can be a boys' club. Yay or nay?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about it.
When I first started practicing law, I was thrown into a workers' compensation court to help out another attorney who couldn't be there that day. And so I went into the courtroom, and there was a group of men huddled around each other, chatting, and they all knew each other, and no one turned around to say hello to me or acknowledge my presence. And they had some kind of in the club rules, like you didn't use blue ink in that courtroom, and I didn't know that. And so I had to kind of insert myself into them and say, hi, my name is Jennifer Fleming. I'm here today. I'm not usually here. Can I ask you guys for some pointers? And, you know, if I hadn't inserted myself, I'm not sure that they would have just opened up and said, by the way, you don't want to use a blue pen in this courtroom. The judge doesn't like it. You should use a black pen. So you really kind of have to go out of your way sometimes. And this was when I first started practicing, so a few years ago. And you really have to insert yourself into it and kind of force your way through, because it's not always super welcoming to you.
Is it easy to tell whether or not it's because you're new to the room or a woman in the room?
I would say sometimes it depends. It can be both. It could be one or the other. And you can sometimes tell by the way people are speaking to you as well. Because, I mean, now I've been practicing a while and it can still happen. So I'm not green anymore.
I saw Michelle and Alyssa nodding.
Which part? They being young or being a woman?
What jumps out at you when you think about these instances?
I specifically remember I had a very a large case, I guess you would say, and it went to a mediation where I was definitely the youngest, even amongst the clients and all surrounding people, and I was also the only woman. And I remember thinking, kind of almost questioning myself, do I belong here? Am I capable? You know, there wasn't a welcome feeling of, oh, hi, you know, welcome, you know, here we are, we're going to mediate this case. I definitely felt like an outsider. And I think part of it is the youngness of it, and then also being a woman. But I think in all parts of our practice, we are confronted with that, where it's, whether it's a client even questioning our age or experience or ability, or people that we come across dealing with cases. It's something we deal with.
Is that because you're a woman, or you're saying these are things that every lawyer has to contend with, whether if you're like fresh out of law school and you're a guy?
I think it's different. I think we have it a little different. We have a double whammy as opposed to someone, you know, a younger man coming out of law school. It may not present the same way.
Yeah. Michelle, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I definitely think it comes across, you know, like Alyssa and Jen were saying, not as much as the young, but still being called by a lot of the older male adjusters and attorneys, and not so much the mediation part now, but, you know, still trying to prove ourselves. You know, the one thing that sticks out to me is the sweetheart, the hun, the babe that we
These
get a lot.
terms of endearment, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Like, that's really offensive, actually.
Yeah, because the undertone of how it's being said, you know, and I've had several opposing counsel, and a lot of them I'm now close with. I feel like I've proven myself, because I've had to prove myself, that no longer use that, you know, terminology, but it's a lot of times, you know, oh, sweetheart, I've been doing this a lot longer than you, so I think I'll take it from here, and I know what I'm doing. And it's, you know, it's kind of the opposite. Well, I am a young lawyer, so I think I know the more recent law a lot better. I think, you know, maybe I've got a little more gung-ho in me type situation, but I still feel that we do have to prove ourselves a lot in this industry.
What do you all do in those moments? Like, do you say, no, sugar, I got it? Or like, what do you do?
You kind of have to have that extra layer of boldness or assertiveness. And that's something you kind of learn in law school, and also you kind of learn it just through hard knocks of, I need to zealously represent my client. So if this person is telling me they're going to take over because they have more experience, it's a matter of respectfully, you know, making your place known in the situation.
Talking about law school, there was a UVA study that said while women make up 55% of the cohort, men speak more often, 62% of the time. whereas women speak 38% of the time in classes. Was that something that you all saw firsthand, experienced?
I don't remember experiencing that in law school specifically, and it's certainly not like that at our firm.
Yeah. Did you feel that you could speak up and be heard and have your ideas taken seriously? Was that a challenge?
I think for me, it was more of an experience. I went to a private law school, and the experience was more from the professors. The male professors were more of, when you read cases and then you talk about the cases in law school a lot, and you're just drilled with questions. And it more so came from, felt the difference of being a female student versus a male student was that the male professors were more about, well, that's not the correct answer. Go home, read it again. Let's talk about it again tomorrow. Whereas my female professors, it was more of, okay, this is what you thought, but why? Why did you think that? Let's have a conversation. Let's try and figure out why you think that, and why I think that, or the case law says this. And I think that's the better approach when it comes to being an attorney, because the law is not crystal clear. I mean, it's changing all the time. There's a lot of law that we have to figure out what it really means and how it applies. And I think being able to have those discussions with the female professors more was able to, allow me to better understand, okay, this is a law and this is why I'm applying it, how I'm applying it, rather than, most of the conversations we hear with the attorney, well, that's not correct. This is what the law says and this is what it is. But that's just not how it works.
Is one of the things that you're taught in law school as a woman how you have to look? How much focus is put on that? Whoa! Was that a toughie? What?
I was going to say, not in law school as much for me, but I took a course.
But maybe when you start practicing?
Yes.
Okay.
I took a course, or a seminar, I should say, on, it really had to do with juries and how they respond to different appearances and colors, but it really applies more so to women than men. If you think about it, men just decide what color suit and tie to put on. Women have to decide, do I wear my hair in a ponytail today? Do I want a softer look where my hair is down? What kind of makeup am I going to wear? What kind of jewelry am I going to wear? Am I going to wear a skirt? Am I going to wear pants? I was told that you only wear a skirt when you are in front of a jury, and I, to this day, stay true to that. Whether it still applies, I don't know, because this course was a few years ago. But it's so much more that women have to go through or think about than men in their appearance. Men normally have shorter hair. There's not a whole lot of many styles they can do with it, and it's not something they put a lot of thought into. I actually do put a lot of thought into my appearance in a courtroom versus a deposition versus a client meeting. There are so many situations where women really have to think about that, and I don't know that it is something that our male counterparts think about as much.
Does anybody have to mute her personal style? Any of you have to change the way that you present work versus personal life?
I think we could probably all agree that professional setting does require a little bit more thought about, how do you present yourself to opposing counsel, to your clients. You want to show that, you're being taken seriously. Women sometimes, have to give extra thought to how they appear to others, especially in our industry. We want to be taken seriously, and I think sometimes personal style can overshadow some things, or it might distract people. So I think the fact that there is a conversation about what men, or the lack of conversation of what men should look like in our profession, versus a conversation in seminars and law schools, it does give us a little bit of that, self-doubt sometimes, am I being appropriate? Is this length of a skirt appropriate? Is the heel too high? Is my hair too bright? Is my makeup too bright? And I think you just kind of take it day by day, and I try not to think of it too much, but we do give it some thought. And
I'm thinking
that's something to say.
I'm thinking if you go barefaced, somebody's going to look down on you for that, right? But then if you put on too many eyelashes or whatever, the mascara is too heavy, or the lipstick, as you said, too bright, somebody's going to look at you for that. And these, just gauging these like little micro pieces of your appearance every day adds an extra layer to what you have to. It's in addition to the arguments that you're preparing.
Well, and we're already trying to make sure that we're being heard and our clients are being represented. And so I think the last thing any of us would want to do is distract from that, whether it's too much or not enough or too short or too long or pants or whatever. We want to focus on the client and the result that we're trying to achieve. And so to say that there's no thought into it would be completely wrong. I mean, we think about
much
it.
thought.
Yeah. And from even like client to client, you know, depending on the situation that we're in, if I'm in a deposition with a client, that client might be completely different than a client I have a mediation, and just the backgrounds and the lifestyles and the people that we are around. And so it is a very true statement that we very much so think about how we appear, and there is a lot of thought to it.
Kate, you were going to say something.
And I would just say briefly, it would be nice if there wasn't as much thought that had to be put into it, because our focus really is on the mental and the strategy and the case and the law, instead of, as female attorneys, it's the appearance and how that is going to impact. My philosophy is always just try to keep it as simple as possible and as professional as possible, so that the focus can just be on what is happening in the case and what needs to happen. But unfortunately, in any given scenario or situation, it can be more complex than that, where you have to put more thought into it.
That's really good advice, Kate.
Michelle had a firsthand experience of what it's like to walk into a room and be told, I can't hear you right now because of what you look like.
I did, and it was actually my first year of law school. So in Florida, when you are a law student, you can actually go ahead and apply to take the bar up. And once you pass that application, you become what is called a certified legal intern. So you practice law under the guidance of another attorney. So I was so excited, my first hearing, also nervous, kind of wanted to throw up, didn't know if I wanted to cry, but still excited because I'm like, oh, I'm in court. Like this is what I want to do. And I'll never forget, the judge had myself and my client approach, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe because I'm new, he just wants to introduce himself. No, it was to basically berate me in front of my client and tell me that women wear white button-downs, skirts, heels, and pantyhose, and that he was actually going to reschedule the hearing until I came back in that attire. So it was very, I don't see that as much today. I think, if at all, it's more what, Jen and Alyssa and Kate and everyone was saying, that kind of what do we want to perceive, and what do we want the client to kind of give off, because it's not, a lot of people judge people by what they look and what they're wearing. That's certainly something that we all have to think about, but it's more so of what are people going to say when they look at us.
What do people say to you on a maybe near daily basis? Or do you hear something as a woman in the legal field that jumps out at you and makes you wonder, would you say that to a guy?
I get the how do you do it a lot, as far as how do you be a mom and work and do all of the things that as women we naturally are doing. So even from clients, colleagues, things like that, there's a certain time of the day where I'm not available because I'm in the carpool line, and that comes up a lot, is how do you do it? And I really don't think any male colleague is getting the question of how do you juggle with your kid having the flu this week? I don't think they're getting that question.
And it's 2022.
Yes.
Yeah. Is anybody shocked that we are still hearing these questions?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
You're shocked because it is 2022. Why are we still doing this? And no, because that's unfortunately just how it is.
That's kind of how it is. Not much has changed since the justice wrote in the 19th century that a woman's place is being a wife and a mother. So to go right into that, something that I don't think men get asked very often, how do you manage that quote unquote work-life balance? What do you do to make sure that you're meeting to your satisfaction the challenges of all the stuff that's pulling at you?
I think it's more so just kind of figuring out the balance of how everything works. I always tell people you can't be 100% for anybody else unless you're 100% for yourself. And once you're able to find that balance, and our firm is very good at that, at allowing us to be working moms, And, if we have to take off early or take our lunch break at a different time of the day, to be flexible and be able to, take our kids to that swim practice, or not miss the cheer meet that they have, or not feel bad about being home when they're working, because being able to be a mom, I think, allows us to just be able to be a better attorney.
Do you think that there are moments, Margaret, where since you became an attorney, it is everything that you thought it would be?
Definitely. I do. I knew that it was going to be challenging, and it has been. I also knew being a female was going to, I guess, affect the way that you're perceived. But, I've always been persistent, so I've always just pushed through and continued. A lot of the things that you hear from other people, when you're in situations like the others are talking about, you just keep going. You have to just power through and act like, I didn't hear that.
Do you feel like you have to bring something extra?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. In what way?
You have to appear confident, because if they see that you're not, they will take an opportunity to take advantage. Yeah, you just have to be prepared and go in and do your job at the best you can. Be professional.
I think somebody mentioned earlier imposter syndrome, which is this thing where you wonder whether, despite all of your smarts and all of your accomplishments, all your achievements, all your education, there's this niggling voice that says, do I really belong here? Can I really do this job? Who's experienced that? Yeah. When did that first rear its ugly head?
Back in law school, I would say.
Yeah?
Yeah, early. And you were talking about how the male students, percentage-wise, speak more than females, and it makes sense. And it makes sense to have imposter syndrome if you look at kind of the demographics of maybe most of the professors are male, white male. Most of the attorneys at that time, or the older attorneys, are white male. So if you're a white male, you're thinking, I probably know the answer to this, or I'm among people that are very similar to me. So then if you're not that, and you're coming in as a woman, person of color, and you're wanting to contribute to the conversation in class, then you do get that kind of imposter syndrome of, well, do I know what I'm talking about because not everyone looks like me? Or do I know what I'm talking about because I'm juggling X, Y, and Z with my family? And it does take some years that you're in practice where you have to get that confidence and say, yeah, I do know what I'm talking about. I have been around this block multiple times, and I know what I'm talking about.
I feel like women feel like they have to earn it more. So even when we started doing Lawyers in the House, at first I got really nervous and I thought, can I be doing this? And then I said, Jen, you've been practicing 15 years. Of course you can do this. But there was a day or two where I thought, oh gosh, I don't know if I know enough to be speaking on all of this. And of course I do is the answer. I do this day in and day out. And I don't know if it's something that other people or other males or feel as much, or it's not portrayed, and maybe they do feel it and we just don't know it. But I do think for women, we second guess ourselves a lot, and you have to have that reassurance in the back of your mind. No, I do belong here. I do know what I'm doing. We fight for our clients just as hard, and we belong here.
Absolutely. You brought up something that triggered my memory, and I had made a note here about this Harvard Business Review study that they did about 5 years ago, and they found that the male justices interrupt the female justices 3 times as often as they interrupt each other during oral arguments. And the justices are more likely also to be, the women justices, more likely to be interrupted by the advocates on the floor too, which I thought was amazing.
Mansplaining.
It's mansplaining. Let's talk about why where you work matters. Because Alyssa and I have talked in the past. You know from experience, not every firm is going to sort of embrace you in all facets of your life the way Montlick has.
And I think like Kate is newer to the firm, and I remember she was sitting with me one day when she first started at the firm, and she has 3 little kids, and I have 2 little kids, and I said, you can do it all here. And when we were having a call to even talk about this topic, I felt like this emotion coming to like the forefront, like almost teary-eyed, but like extreme gratefulness, because the ability for the firm to equip us to be strong women, moms, and have all the support around us, it makes us that much better. It makes us that much more relatable to our clients and our colleagues, to where, I'm not worried about my boss saying, Alyssa, make sure you're online at 8 a.m. It's okay that I take my kids to school in the morning, and it's okay if they have an ear infection and they need to go to the doctor. I can be present there. And so taking that pressure off of us, where some firms, you're there 6 to 6, no matter what, or you have to bill by the hour, the freedom that it gives us to actually practice, and it in turn gives us that confidence of, okay, I'm supported at work. I'm supported by my colleagues. If I can't take a phone call, she can take it for me while I'm at the doctor's office, or whatever it is. So the empowerment that the firm, in essence of just the culture, is so valuable. And I think we all can speak to it in different ways as far as our lives and what we have to do as moms, and things that we enjoy doing with our families. But this is like one of my things. I can't speak highly enough about the culture that our firm has and how supportive it is. It's absolutely, I could cry. It's fantastic.
I see the tears in your eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it is, because I could. One of the things is, like, when I had my first child, I remember like going to my boss and saying, like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't want him to be in daycare 6 to 6. I want to spend time with my child. Like, that's why I'm having kids. And I remember him saying, just do your thing. Like, just do your thing, and it will be fine. We'll work it out. And just to have that support, is just, I don't think it's matched anywhere else.
Yeah. Do you find that you have colleagues at other firms, women colleagues at other firms, who are complaining about just the opposite?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah?
Yes.
I mean, I think the firm, they definitely take it a step further. I remember the one thing that stuck out to me the most was I had been there for about 6 months, and our boss was kind of coming around because he makes his rounds to say hi to everybody. I mean, he actually, all of our colleagues and all of our managing attorneys and staff take the time to get to know you. And I just remember going home saying, my boss asked me how my dog Riley was. Like, he remembered the fact that I had a dog. Her name was Riley. And, like Alyssa said, just the support that they give us, and the fact that they actually, care and take it that extra step to want to know. I mean, he'll reach out and say, I haven't got, a video of my favorite dancing little girl in a while. Why haven't you sent me one, type situation. Just taking the time out of their busy day to just get to know you and provide that support is just something that I have never felt at any firm before.
I would also say, just to kind of follow up, is the camaraderie among female attorneys is a special thing. And I don't know any other experience or what the camaraderie is like among the male attorneys, but being relatively new at the firm, and they matched me up with mostly women as mentors, and I know why, and I really feed off of that community. And you had asked us to think of like the inspirational quote that we wanted to share or contribute. And honestly, like Alyssa's comment to me when we were doing our like PowerPoint training is, she looked me right in the eyes and she was like, you can do this. You can be a mom, you can have your whole life, and you can be successful here at this firm. And just that statement was so empowering. And then I had everybody, like Jen was constantly checking in on me. And I don't know if males or whoever else gets that sense of community. So I love being a part of it.
Sisterhood of the legal briefs, so to speak. We are talking about women in law with these dynamic lawyers from Montlick Injury Attorneys. Going to take a quick break and come back talking about how important is it to have a male ally in the legal space. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House, a very special episode as we talk about women in law with 6 dynamic attorneys from Montlick Injury Attorneys. Sitting next to me, we've got Jennifer, Alyssa, Michelle, Nevis, Kate, and Margaret talking to you about their experiences, letting us know what their journeys are like and what words of wisdom they would impart to those who are coming after them. Now, before we took a break, we were talking about how much it matters being at the right firm. Where you work can actually matter. Nevis.
Before coming to Montlick, I thought that I would have to work another 10, 15 years and have a senior position before I would get the opportunity to work on cases that mattered, cases that were high in value. And once I came to this firm, I realized that everyone had an equal opportunity. Everybody had the same right to take on a case that can change someone's life, a case that maybe at another firm we would never even be able to touch because it would be reserved for a partner or someone who maybe I thought a male seasoned attorney. And since coming to this firm where the culture is nurturing, there is a camaraderie where we work together, we bounce ideas off of one another, we have mentors sometimes. It is conducive for an environment that makes you become a better attorney, get great outcomes, and outcomes that I thought in my career this early on I wouldn't have achieved. So it does matter, and Montlick is the type of firm that allows women, young, or ones who haven't been practicing for a long time, or someone who's been doing this for a long time, to take on matters that change people's lives and that give a self-satisfaction that you feel like you're doing something.
It sounds like you feel trusted at Montlick, Margaret.
Yes. I do feel trusted at Montlick. When I initially went to work there, I was extremely pleased, we'll say, with all of the camaraderie that I received. You know, I mean, I could take any case or any situation to someone else and discuss it with them to get a viewpoint on how to handle things if I was struggling for some reason. You know, you're a new attorney, you're trying to do the best you can for people. So, of course, you're going to maybe get some other viewpoints, see if you're missing something or, you know, the best action to take. And immediately when I started working there, there was so many people I could go to and talk to on a regular basis. It was great.
Well, and just even before we started here today, we were talking about an issue I'm having, and Michelle pops in and she says, "Oh, I have a letter for that." And so we're talking about it. And then Kay's like, "Can you send that to me too?" And so just the fact that we're encouraged to work together, and it's not like a forced thing. It all just kind of happens, you know, and we'll call each other and say, okay, hey, I have this case. What would you send a demand for? Or like a rundown of the facts and like, how would you handle this? And just to have like minds bouncing things off, it not only is like a good collaborative, healthy environment for us, but it also is helpful for our clients too, because the more minds you have, you know, bouncing ideas off each other, the better it is for everybody.
I have heard that before, that Montlick is like this collective of brilliant legal minds that you can always bounce things off of, no matter the gender of the lawyer who's there, right? It's everyone is like equally welcoming, equally helpful. You are looking at our smiling faces right here on this special episode of Lawyers in the House, talking about women in law. But if you are here, that means, you know what, look right there. You can see that Montlick has a ton more of these episodes. Make sure you check us out on every podcast platform. You can listen to us, or always go to lawyersinthehouse.com as well to drop us a line. Send us your personal questions and find us on every social platform at Montlick Law. But again, you're right here on YouTube, so check out all the episodes. All of these attorneys have been on previous episodes. I've got repeat guests here with me today, all dynamic. We have talked about, what do we talk about? Ride shares, just like an introduction to personal injury, insurance, legal terms. Like, we've been all over the map. These experts, they're experts to me. They are here for you. Drop us a line, send us your questions, check out these episodes, and tell us what you think. I said that I was going to ask whether it's important to have male allies in the spaces that you walk into day after day. Obviously, you have this camaraderie at Montlick. How important is it to have those allies who are male wherever you go?
I think it's important just to have allies in general, too. I mean, because what if you do go into a room and it's all women? You want them to be your allies as well. But of course, you you always want another person who might bring a different perspective and help you with your case. And I was told when I first started practicing, if you're not asking questions, you're not doing something right. And that was by someone that had been practicing for 30 years. So the law is always evolving. Things are changing. Different scenarios are thrown at you all day. And so that's why it's so great to have women and male people that you can go to and bounce ideas off of, and maybe they give you a male perspective. There are cases that are gender specific too that we get that happen at a nail salon for women, or something to do with the male anatomy, a medical malpractice case. And so you definitely want to have a male counterpart as well. And Montlick is great with that because everyone is really there. Every attorney pretty much has an open door policy. I don't know any attorney at that firm where if you called them or went over to their office and said, hey, can I pick your brain? No one is going to say no. They're always so helpful. And we love helping each other because then we're all learning and we're all getting different perspectives.
You're making your mark, obviously, as attorneys when you are young in the legal field. Even if you've had a previous career like Margaret or like Michelle, you're still young in the legal field when you first become an attorney. So you're trying to distinguish yourself. And maybe I should ask you how you do that. But in those moments where, say, a judge gives you a side eye for the blouse that you're wearing, the color lipstick that you have on, or maybe the rare instance where a client maybe questions, are you really my lawyer? Are you the court reporter? Does it help to have sort of a man step in? I hate to say it like that, but to say, maybe I should just say, have you had an instance like that?
Yeah, I can recall a few times. One specifically, I was in a mediation in a very large settlement case, and myself, another male attorney in our firm, and the other opposing counsel was a male and female duo as well. And I'm part of a few Facebook groups, and I remember seeing the other female attorney post on there about a comment about how every time the mediator would come back after breaks, he would only refer to the male attorney in the room. And the other Montlick attorney I had, who's no longer with the firm, he's retired, would always say, well, this is Michelle's case. She is the lead. So when you come in, he stopped it right away. When you come into the room, you address both of us. But it was very interesting that she had also experienced the same thing from this individual. And I will say, anytime that any of us, I've personally gone to another attorney, specifically a male, because I'm having a situation where I'm being questioned because I'm a female. Well, I think, getting another male attorney to review the case will actually, they may be able to do something different. And I have had to go to a couple of attorneys and say, hey, can you just talk? Can you look at this? Give me your perspective. And they're very quick to call and say, and I've had one of our managing attorneys call and say, I can't do anything better than her. She got you the best result that she's got. But we do have that support that if we feel we are in that position that we need to maybe have, a male colleague or mentor step in and just make a quick call or do something, they're very eager and quick to do it for us.
I remember specifically one time where a client was questioning something that I had done or a decision that I had made. And I remember our boss, Alan, saying, she speaks for the firm. We support what she has said. And it was, it was a complicated matter and, it wasn't pretty, so to speak. And I remember feeling like, okay, he's got my back. And, in other scenarios, someone in that position could have completely undermined my decision to withdraw from that case, which is what I was doing. But to know that, to hear those words come out of his mouth, like, Alyssa, you speak for the firm, you're just like, okay, all right, I'm solid in this, and to have that support, it makes the stress of practicing law a little less.
How do you distinguish yourselves? When you're an up-and-coming lawyer, you have, I'm sure some of you graduated with honors. You probably got all the accolades in law review and all the stuff I don't even know about in law school, right? You come out of law school and now you're making your first foray into the field. And you've decided maybe you're going to hang out your own shingle or you're going to join a firm. How do you, what are the correct first steps to make, I guess? How do you start to make your mark in the way that you want to?
I would say, and again, something that my father taught me is that it so much comes down to the relationship building, because you'll find that even though Atlanta seems like a big city, the legal community in Atlanta and in Georgia is relatively small. And so you're going to deal with those same attorneys, whether it's other plaintiffs' attorneys, defense counsel, adjusters, whatever job you're going into, you're going to deal with the same people for years and years. So it's all about just kind of building over time that relationship where they know, like Michelle was saying, like after multiple interactions with an adjuster or a defense attorney, they know how powerful she is. They know what she's capable of. And sometimes as women, you don't have that. You can't hand somebody your resume when you meet them and they look at you and maybe make some judgment calls on the fact that you're female or young or new to the field. So yeah, it's about just kind of slowly building that reputation over time.
I think joining organizations too that help that, and having a good support system, like we talked about it at Montlake, they really support you. And when you have that support, you know that you have the resources to make your mark and to really help clients. But joining organizations that interest you and that are in your part of the law, or more specifically women's organizations, because a lot of these legal organizations have then a smaller group that are for women. And that's a really good support system when you're first starting out and you don't know a whole lot of people. And then you go to these events and you get to meet them. And then you have someone, if let's just say you do start your own law firm or you're part of a smaller firm, you have other people you can tap into and relationships that you build. It's about relationships and joining organizations that really propel you forward and that can help you, I think, as well as what Kate said.
I would also piggyback on that. You can be a zealous advocate for your client, but do it in a professional, ethical, kind, generous way. I think being very sincere in your approach when talking to opposing counsel, people on the other side. These are sometimes relationships or acquaintances that you're going to have for years to come. And reputation does precede you. And I think if you're hardworking, kind, you show your competence, after a while, people will know who they're dealing with. And you don't have to do that in a very negative way. It can be light and playful and fun. And we do this every single day. You have to have fun. You have to love what you're doing.
Do you have to love it? That's a good question. Do you have to love it?
I don't know how you can do what we do with the stresses, with the sometimes long hours, with all the stresses that come with being a practicing attorney and fighting for justice, fighting for people. If you don't love it, the lack of passion will be an obstacle. And it's just so much more fun. And I think you're better at anything when you love what you do.
Let's talk about the advantages. We've talked about the challenges. We've talked about stepping into the boys' club. Let's talk about advantages to being a woman in law.
I think we can relate really well. Probably once a week at least, we'll get a call of a woman in a car accident with kids in the car seats that need to be replaced, and she's still trying to get the kids to school and practice in a rental car and buying car seats and all of these things. And I one of the first things I'll tell someone in that position is, I completely understand. I have been there. I know exactly what you're going through. You got to go replace the car seats. You have to do that first. You're not going to be able to get a rental car and put, all of these things. And so being able to relate on a personal level, but also being women, like mom to mom or working mom to working mom, I think really like transcends the relationship that we would have maybe with other clients specifically, but just knowing that we're a human and, that we can understand and relate to what they're going through on the day-to-day for why they're calling to help us. So a lot of times one of the things I'll say on an initial call with someone is like, let us carry the burden for you. You are hiring us to handle this burden. You go to the doctor, you get well, let us handle the legal parts. That's why you're hiring me. And so just being able to speak that truth to them, I think is really helpful.
Who's landed a case because a client specifically said, I want a woman as my attorney? Jennifer, Michelle, both of you.
Yes, I've had some beauty salon cases. I've had cases where there's a waxing incident and you're dealing with a delicate situation and a woman wants another woman to woman, right? We understand what's happening. You can empathize with them. You think about what would that be like if I had to go through that? And I have had women ask for women. I've actually also had men ask for women before, which is great to see, and it's a wonderful thing. And I don't always ask them why, but it's nice when they do. And I think, as Alyssa said, we can relate to them. We can empathize with them. And that makes you a better advocate in the end, because you care about that person. And men do go to the nail salon, but a lot of women,
get waxed.
right?
They get waxed.
Exactly. But as someone who does get their nails done, I understood my client was seriously injured at a nail salon. And so I could understand what that would feel like, and I advocated for her. And sometimes you get insurance adjusters or attorneys who are male on the other end, and you have to really break it down for them. I did have a client that was not able to be intimate with her husband anymore because of something that happened, and I had to say to the male, I don't know if you understand what that might be like for a woman, and they switched to a woman adjuster, which was interesting.
And how did the case turn out?
It turned out well for the client.
Yeah.
I mean, she was still injured, so there's no amount of money that but it was a good result for her.
Yeah. Margaret, you were vigorously nodding your head.
I've definitely had my share of cases where I think even males in the office thought maybe Margaret could handle this a little easier than what I'm looking at, due to the photos and, the damage that was occurred at the waxing salon or nail salon, dog bites, things like that. And I definitely offered my perception on the injuries as a female. I mean, we had one lady who had a breast injury. Well, we've had several, but maybe 3 or 4 are sticking out. And I feel like I just offered my perspective on how that must be, and it definitely helped. The cases turned out, I think, in the positive.
Is that because the empathy and compassion and perspectives that you have sort of help all of the attorneys paint the picture for a judge, a mediator, a jury of exactly how heinous or grievous this injury might be? Is it something as simple as that, or is there more to it?
I think there's more to it. Sometimes when you're speaking with the clients, you ask different questions because you're a female, and it's a female issue, so you already have experience to some extent. Maybe not the injury, but you definitely can empathize with what's happening. And then on top of that, you definitely can have a viewpoint that's different from a man's as to what they're experiencing and how their life has changed as a result of the injury.
You wanted to say something, Nevis? Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that a big part of our job is talking to our clients about the things that they're going through. They're injured. Sometimes they've lost a loved one, and these are life-altering changes that they're experiencing. And sometimes they just need someone to listen to them, to hear their woes. And I think maybe a benefit of being a woman, we tend to be nurturing, and we tend to be really great listeners. And even if you're not a mother, perhaps, all of us here are sisters or daughters or wives, mothers. And I think sometimes listening to your client tell you their most intimate, difficult things that they're going through at that time, just that extra effort of showing compassion and being nurturing is helpful and can make all the difference in the world for them and help them get through that very serious, complex process that people don't understand unless they've lived through it. So,
is there some quality that when you were starting out in your careers, maybe you didn't realize was as important or would be as important as you've now realized it is?
Maybe the personalization of what we do. Whenever you're in court or drafting documents or letters, it's easy to lose sight of the person behind what we're reading in the medical records. And when you were saying like that we can, ask the questions and things like that, being able to understand, like, let's say, for instance, someone has a broken left hand, right? You don't think about all the things that a broken left hand does to your life for however long it's in a cast. But reading it on a medical record, it doesn't jump out to you that every time they wore a button-up shirt, their wife or their spouse had to button their shirt, or every time they used the restroom, they had to modify how they did things. So being able to personalize what we see on paper and then having that connection with a client, I think comes with experience. It's not something that I'm sure I was not considering those aspects of it earlier on in my career. But as you hear from people over and over again, and the hand injuries come out to me because they're often really overlooked. There's not much that you can do for them usually, some therapy, unless they're having surgery, but just the immobility of your hands, and how much that would actually impact every single thing you do that day. And being able to personalize that and verbalize it out to the adjuster or the defense attorney or the jury, I think comes with experience. And as women, seeing it and feeling it and being able to then advocate for our client based on all of those things, I think has been something over time has developed.
When it comes to advocating for your client, if you're litigating a case, does being a woman help somehow? Is it
I think it does in certain situations, and Kate and I were actually just talking about this earlier in our radio segment a little bit before, that, sometimes every time I have a trial, I always poll the jury, and I always ask them, can you kind of tell me some things that you notice? And one thing that caught on early with me as a young attorney was that they would actually tell me what they personally felt about myself and opposing counsel and my client just based on what they wore, how they talked, how they were acting. And it was very interesting to hear that, sometimes they would say, well, we could see that opposing counsel was, in certain situations I think of where male attorneys were kind of ganging up on your client or weren't very nice. And I think the fact that we're able to pick up on that and really bring, like all of us have been saying, that empathy, that support, that kindness, in the way that we hold ourselves, deliver ourselves. And I have had cases where they have said, we gave your client a little more money because of that, because we didn't feel like this individual was kind. We felt that he was rude. And I think that does play a hand in what we do.
You have to, it sounds like, is there this balance walking that you have to do? Sort of, you've got to be assertive, but just the right amount of assertive and not too assertive. And you have to smile, but not too much. Right? Am I?
Right.
Yeah.
Because women, if we're overly aggressive, we're deemed the witch. And men are deemed pit bulls, and they're really good at their job and they have all this confidence. But it is a weird balance. To piggyback on what Michelle was saying, I also had a trial where the defense attorney was very aggressive and the jury did not like that. And I could kind of see that. So I kind of sat back, and it was a little bit of good cop, bad cop. And I was kind and nice and sincere while still being a really good advocate for my client. And we got a really, really good jury result because they felt that the male defense attorney, it was just too much. It was too aggressive. And I think as women, it is a really fine line for us too, because you want to be that best advocate without having been deemed that word that we all have sometimes. And if you can show your kind, compassionate side, which we all have, I think it almost plays better.
You can lead with empathy, lead with kindness.
Right.
I want to, before I wrap up the show, who over here on this sofa was called Bulldog in a Skirt? Somebody knows how to walk the walk and talk the talk, right?
I'll take that one.
Remind us quickly, Michelle, what that case was about and what that meant to you.
Oh gosh, here we go. That was a difficult case for me. She's one of my clients that we exchange Christmas cards. She sends me my daughter a birthday card every year. Like, we're still very close. We actually talked this morning. She was coming out of a Walmart shopping center, and unfortunately an individual that was under the influence that had just stolen a vehicle was being chased by the owner of the vehicle and another vehicle as well as a police officer. She was hit. She was ejected through the windshield, and her two kids were in the back seat, and it was just a very significant case. It struck a chord with me because I actually got the case when I had just found out I was expecting, and I'll never get the thought of her kids screaming for her, out of her mind. But we advocated zealously for her, and I had actually sent a demand, which is an offer letter we send on behalf of our clients to get the case settled. I had sent it to her insurance company. We got the results, and I sent it to defense counsel for the individual that started the high-speed chase because he was actually received a citation for it. Defense counsel decided not to respond, and so we were actually able to pursue bad faith because they didn't timely respond and got her well above the limits of what she was able to what she should have received.
I love hearing the stories of the successes and how empowered you've been. Alyssa talked earlier, actually, I think everybody has said Montlick empowers you to excel and to speak for the firm, and they know that Montlick has got your back. But I do want to point out that Nevis pointed out to us earlier, listen, stereotyping can go both ways.
Absolutely. I think much of what we're talking about on this show is the challenges, obstacles, and some very unique circumstances. Being a woman in the field that you mentioned very early on is only 38% populated by women. That is what you said at the very beginning. Because we are outnumbered in our practice, we could not do this job without our male counterparts. Specifically at Montlick, our colleagues, our male colleagues, are our friends. They're our team members. They are sometimes our mentors. And it's not fair to say that, there are challenges that male attorneys don't also face every day and try to overcome. There are specific things that we deal with because we are female, but without them and without the help that they lend every single day, not just at our firm, but working with us, the adjusters, the judges, the opposing counsel, it is a collaborative effort. You cannot do this job one-sided. You have to be able to work well with people, but for those welcoming and receiving and very genuine interactions that we have with our male colleagues, we wouldn't be able to do this job. So it's not always fair to say that because a male attorney, he is male, he cannot be compassionate or kind or bring a perspective that we can. And it's also not fair to say that all women, share in these obstacles and cannot do the job that we're equipped very well to do and do every single day in this practice. So yeah, stereotypes sometimes are a little tricky, but we can all agree that there are challenges that female attorneys face, and that's just the reality. But it is getting better. In our practice, as young female attorneys practicing in 2022, it is very different than it was 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago.
Yes, and just look at the inroads women continue to make in the legal field. 20 years ago, women, just 29% of the legal field, now almost at 40%. It is clear that women understand this is a field where we can be welcome, where we can make our marks, where we belong. Now, let's turn back the hands of time a little bit. I want you to think about who you were as a young 1L. That means like first year law student, I learned. When you were a young 1L, 2L, you're this woman learning about the field. If you could today talk to the younger you, what advice would you give your young law school self? Jennifer?
Mine would be, you can never be over-prepared. I clerked for a judge, a female. She was very well respected in the community, and I learned a lot from her. And I had prepared and gone into her chambers to discuss her cases coming up, and she asked a question that I was not prepared for. And if you're smart, that only happens once. And I learned right then and there, I need to be over-prepared. Not only do I need to prepare my own arguments and thoughts, I need to think about the other side and be prepared for any question a judge might throw at you, because judges do that all the time. You go for oral argument, they interrupt what you're saying to ask you a question about something else. And you never want to stand in front of a judge and say, "Judge, I don't know." You need to have an answer for them and make your argument clear. So I would say, thank you, Judge Cassidy. I'm going to give her a shout out. But you can never be over-prepared. And if you are, then you will never feel as though you haven't done enough, and you will go in there advocating for your client the best you can.
Margaret?
Yes.
Advice for your younger self as a young law student?
Let's see. I was thinking that when I was a young law student, I worried about things that really weren't going to be an issue. So, you worry about, am I going to say the wrong answer in class, things like that. But as Jennifer said, you just want to be prepared, because the Socratic method, they're going to ask you all kinds of questions, and you need to be prepared. And that's really the root of the profession, in a way, is to be prepared to advocate for the client.
Alyssa?
So in law school, they kind of portray a lawyer who drinks heavily and is in the library from sunup to sundown, and just these cutthroat environments. And I think I would have told my younger self, like, you can do law well, but you can also be a really good, healthy person at the same time. Like, it doesn't have to be the attorney memes that you see where like the lawyers are pulling their head out and the eyes are bugging out. You can balance it if you're in the right environment, of course, but you can choose that for yourself. You don't have to spend sunup to sundown in your office or in the library. You can do it well. And I don't think I knew that early on. I thought I was just, going to be on this road in my office, no fun, no, things that I enjoy doing on top of the law. But yeah, and I would tell any young lawyer that you don't have to choose that path for yourself. You can be well. And I think that's something really important that younger people should know.
Kate?
I would tell myself and tell a 1L student that this career path that you are getting on right now will teach you what you're capable of in so many ways that you may not have had otherwise without going through law school, taking the bar exam, practicing law on a regular basis. You are facing fears, overcoming those, and just going for it. A lot of public speaking, a lot of thinking on your feet. And then you kind of confront that experience, you move through it, you learn from it, and you become better at what you're doing because of that. And it kind of impacts every aspect of life as well.
Fall down 9 times, get up 10. Yes. Yeah. Michelle?
I would say telling a 1L student, finding that mentorship and that support group, it's really important to, especially as a young attorney, you don't really know, for me, you don't know what area of law you want to do. And so you're kind of just, you sit down your first day. My first day was the teacher calling on the first person. Literally the class started at 8:01, and it was, tell me what you read last night. And all of us are thinking, no, wait, I don't know anything I just read. Like none of the terminology makes sense. But finding that mentor early on can give you the support that you need to get through law school. Just the simple things of, am I an outline student? Am I a note card student? But being able to also call that mentor and just have those conversations about how you really feel, and to just hopefully get that reassurance from your mentor that it's okay. I've been there. I've done this. You've got this, because those mentorships, not only in law school, will extend past law school. And I think that's something that's very important to also have when you're a lawyer.
Nevis, what you know now that you wished your young law student self had known then?
The advice that I would give my 1L self is, you can do this and you belong here. There's so much self-doubt at the beginning because it's a challenging road. You're learning so much. You're being challenged. You're being tested on theories and legal theories and things that are very complex, and they're hard and they're new. And so much is riding on it. I would tell myself, you've got this, you're capable, and you belong there. That's what I would tell anybody taking on this journey, because it's not easy. It's very stressful. The journey to becoming an attorney is a long one. You have to study and be hardworking and learn how to do this. But once you get there, once you get to this position where we're in our careers at this wonderful firm that allows us to be the attorneys stylistically that we want to be, and to be able to get these great outcomes for our clients, it's a dream come true. I never thought that I would be in this position at my age when I was a 1L, where I thought, will I even graduate? Will I pass the bar? Never did I think I could be at a firm like this. And dreams do come true. I'll say that.
Dreams do come true. And that is how you do a Montlick closing argument. Thank you so much to these 6 dynamic Montlick injury attorneys joining me here on the stage today for this special episode of Women in Law with Montlick on Lawyers in the House. Margaret Grinleski, Kate Powell, Nevis Yurich, Michelle Mampawa, Alyssa White, and Jennifer Fleming. So happy as always to have you in the house. I can't wait until you're back with me again. And I really appreciate, and I know our audience appreciates, you sharing those beautiful nuggets to help the next generation of women lawyers, and all lawyers really, come along. In the words of the first woman to become a justice of the United States Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor, it's fine to be the first, but you don't want to be the last. I'm Veronica Waters. This is Lawyers in the House.